I've been captivated by stories for as long as I can remember, from getting lost in magical worlds and solving mysteries, as well as listening to them every night as I go to bed. So with this introduction of stories, and with your all's attention, I'd like to tell you one. It's a little bit of a doozy, but it's how this show came to be and my journey on becoming the artist I wanted to be. So let's go back in time to 2019, my freshman year of college. I was feeling good. Everything was going my way. I had friends that I just escaped the living hell that was high school, and I started making new friends and having incredible experiences with them. I started dating a wonderful person who unfortunately couldn't be here today. And I even got a wonderful new nickname through this found family that I had, Janky, which was derived from a very embarrassing dance I did while I was drunk, so please don't ask me to do it right now. But I was feeling good, ready to take on the world. And then COVID happened, and it was all downhill from there. I'll spare you the details of my pitiful summer spent in despair, but I'll give you a few highlights. I shaved my head with my roommate's clippers, which I don't even want to know what he did with those. I almost lost love of my life through ignorance, and my found family that I had just found was lost. This was my attitude going into my sophomore year of college. I felt down and really low, and instead of getting sucked into classes to take away all the feelings going on in my head, I sucked on a bomb and shut myself off completely from the outside world. This artwork I was making at the time was hollow and flat because of my disconnected and failure, because I was so disconnected and my failure to engage with anybody. I was hoping and praying for a wake-up call, and fortunately and unfortunately, it came. On November 3rd, 2020, I woke up late for work, and because of the scattered nature I was in at that time, I wasn't paying attention, and I crashed my car on the interstate. Now, in the aftermath of this accident, I had three major things I was thinking about. First, I was alive. I could still move my arms and legs. I was fine. I could still be myself. Two, why are my airbags mint green? And three, I felt like I had let everybody down. My friends, my family, but most importantly, myself. I felt very upset with myself that I had fallen so far and was determined to get myself back on track. So that's what I did. In the spring of next year, I was able to get myself back in my good graces with my professors. I was able to keep my scholarships, thank God. And I started actually caring about the artwork I was making. Now, as a poor college student, this resurgence of creation was halted by my lack of materiality. So I turned to the next best thing and made do with what I had. I used cheap paints that I got from Walmart for 50 cents a bottle. I painted on old bed sheets and old drop cloths and my roommate's old towels. I painted with corks and nails and thumbtacks because I couldn't afford brushes. And I felt this resurgence of that old nickname, Janky. This is what my art was becoming. It felt very much like I was making something out of nothing, but it was freeing. I was able to explore what it was that I was trying to make and feel happy about pushing that boundary. It was around this time that I also started taking some sculpture classes to broaden my artistic endeavors, as well as looking at my old influences, such as Stanley Donwood with his incredibly surreal and abstract landscapes, Philip Guston with his resurgence coming back to a more free hand. And of course, I looked at Jean-Michel Basquiat, and not only his paintings on found materials, but the subject matter he was human anatomy, and text, lots and lots of text, which I adored. Now, I grappled with a lot of different things moving forward in my art career, but I felt very happy moving forward. It was just that I felt like I wasn't sure what to create. What subject matter should I input into the art that I want to make? So I experimented. I started listening to different music and inputting that into my work. I started paying attention to the news and put in social events and commentaries into my work. And I started turning inward and looking into myself and started thinking about what it was that I wanted to create. Now at this time was when I started to really think and actually secure this honors thesis to create. And with the deadline set, I started to make art. For the first time ever over the summer, I actually made art. I just give myself a round of applause for that one. And while I wasn't sure what I was going to create, I had feelings inside of myself that I was still wrestling with. When I first started painting, what if I'm not ready? Maybe I just don't care. I was dealing with the departure of someone significant in my life, a partner in crime during nighttime recklessness. When I am moving on from that period of my life, I painted the elephant while consuming. I was consumed by this overwhelming anxiety of stepping out of my comfort zone, not only with my artwork, but in my personal life and where I was going. This time also allowed me to reflect on past traumas in my life, think about them, how much danger I was in during them, and come to terms with them throughout my artwork, as seen in 3-4-21. Now I should mention, at the end of the summer, my sculpture practice was still relatively in its infancy. I hadn't fully committed to the jankiness. And so I started thinking about what I could do to create jankiness in sculptures. I started looking at other influences that I had encountered in the past, such as Nari Ward and his use of found objects into creating a different object, if that makes any sense. And through this practice, I created the closest I could ever get. I was able to engage with my past, present, and future of who I was through my familial heritage and janky construction, found objects from my childhood galore. But I still felt like there was a dividing wall between my two practices. They were both getting into this idea of janky, but they still felt like two very separate ideas, as well as what I like to paint, being both serious and silly. And for this next piece, I decided to challenge my own self and create something that was both a painting and a sculpture, focusing on an embarrassingly silly moment in my life, but also focusing on the merger of these two as one. Now you've gone too far. This evolution continued into three-dimensional paintings when I started looking at artists like Mike Cloud and his triangle-based paintings that seemed much like sculpture, but were very much paintings. I took this one step further and went on a spiritual journey in creating Triadic Epiphany. But now, I had another issue in my life. I was thinking about what it meant to paint on a flat surface again. How could I inject a flat surface with three-dimensionality? Dealing with a lot of betrayal as my life changed, my paintings evolved into relief sculpture and collage with Farewell Judas. And this brings me to the end, the ladder. On November 3rd, 2020, when I got in my accident, I struck a ladder in the middle of the road. And I was intrigued by the idea of a ladder for the longest time, but I couldn't pinpoint it until after the piece had been finished. And I wasn't sure why I wanted to create a ladder, but I just had to. And I feel like this feeling that erupted out of me a need to make a ladder encapsulates not only what this show is about, but also who I was and who I am. And that's what good stories have the ability